When Shaun Cassidy first became famous, he seemed to have everything: good looks, talent, and fame at a young age. He was the kind of clean-cut teen idol that television loved to show off. But behind the perfect smile, there was a story that no one saw. Shaun didn't just want to be a heartthrob on a safe TV show. He wanted to tell real stories about things like police problems, teenage pain, and the dark side of growing up in Hollywood. But the network didn't want that. They wanted to keep things simple and happy. Shaun went along with it for a while, smiling for the cameras and pretending everything was fine. But deep down, he was fighting a quiet battle. He felt trapped in a world that didn't want truth, only image. By 1981, that pressure became too heavy to carry. He walked away from fame and disappeared from the spotlight for nearly 40 years. Later, when he finally returned, he shocked everyone by turning down millions of dollars to reboot the Hardy Boys. His reason was simple: the scripts were too childish. He wanted stories with heart and honesty. That choice revealed what kind of person he truly was, and what his years of silence had really been about. Shaun Cassidy was born on September 27, 1958, in Los Angeles, California. His family was already famous. His mother, Shirley Jones, was an Oscar-winning actress, and his father, Jack Cassidy, was a Broadway star. But their home wasn't peaceful or glamorous. It was chaotic and often frightening. Jack struggled with bipolar disorder and heavy drinking. He could be kind one moment and terrifying the next. Sometimes he acted strangely, even walking around naked or claiming to be Jesus. These were not jokes or performances. They were signs of deep mental illness, and young Shaun had to witness them. He grew up surrounded by broken furniture, screaming matches, and nights filled with fae. His older half-brother, David Cassidy, was already a huge star by the early 1970s. David's fame made Shaun feel invisible in his own family. Shirley even played David's mother on The Partridge Family, and that made things feel even worse for Shaun. While David got the attention of the world, Shaun struggled quietly, trying to prove he mattered too. Even years later, Shaun admitted that David never offered him much advice or support. Their relationship was distant and full of tension, something that hurt Shaun deeply and stayed with him long after the cameras stopped rolling. Life in Hollywood wasn't kind to Shaun. His family moved into a big Beverly Hills mansion, which might sound exciting, but for him, it was like living in a glass cage. At school, classmates teased him because of his famous mother and her musical roles. They sang cruel versions of her songs and mocked her career. Shaun felt humiliated and lonely. Although he went to school with future stars like Nicolas Cage and Lenny Kravitz, he always felt like an outsider. Then tragedy struck. In December 1976, his father, Jack, died in a terrible fire. He had been drinking that night when a cigarette set his couch on fire. Firefighters found his body near the door, and Shaun had to identify him using his father's melted gold ring. That image, the smell of smoke, the blackened walls, haunted Shaun forever. It changed how he saw life, fame, and family. That same pain would later show up in the dark stories he would go on to write and produce. It was also the moment that made him start questioning what Hollywood really meant. Fame didn't look glamorous anymore. It looked dangerous, fragile, and fake. After his father's death, Shaun's mother tried to help him focus on his career. He started taking acting classes and even auditioned for commercials, but early on, casting directors told him he looked too sweet to play rebellious characters. Still, he didn't give up. In 1975, he signed a record deal, and in 1977, his cover of Da Do Ron Ron became a massive hit, reaching #1 on the Billboard charts. Almost overnight, he became a teen idol. Magazines like Tiger Beat printed his photo on every cover, and teenage fans around the world sent him thousands of letters. But behind the success, he was struggling. He was doing up to 200 shows a year with little sleep. During a concert in Germany, he collapsed from exhaustion. His managers pushed him too hard, and he realized that fame came with a price. His record company also tried to create fake romantic stories about him to sell more albums, forcing him to pose for photos with women he didn't even know. He was just a teenager, but every part of his image was controlled by others. The fame that seemed exciting soon began to feel like a prison made of lights and cameras. In 1977, Shaun was cast as Joe Hardy in the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew Mysteries. It should have been the dream job. Millions watched the show every week, and he became even more famous. But behind the scenes, he was frustrated. He wanted the show to explore serious topics like teen alcoholism and real-life struggles, but the network refused. They wanted happy, safe mysteries, not real emotion. Shaun pushed for changes, asking writers to make the stories more meaningful, but he was shut down again and again. Even the production was tough, long hours, dangerous stunts, and exhaustion. At one point, his co-star Parker Stevenson was injured on set, raising concerns about safety. The pressure kept building. When actress Pamela Sue Martin was fired after posing for Playboy, the show's tone started to change. By the third season, the series became darker, with stories about death, crime, and loss. Parents complained, ratings dropped, and the network panicked. The show was canceled in 1979. Officially, the reason was low ratings, but the truth was deeper. Shaun wanted to grow up, to tell the truth through art, but the industry didn't want him to change. They wanted him to stay forever young, smiling, and safe. After the Hardy Boys ended, Shaun faced a crisis. His teen fans were growing older, and he didn't know what to do next. He tried acting in serious plays, but people didn't take him seriously. When he joined the Broadway show Mass Appeal, audiences left once they realized it was the Shaun Cassidy from TV. The show closed early, losing millions. He also tried to reinvent himself musically with a darker rock album called Wasp, but it flopped. Critics mocked him, and Warner Brothers dropped him. Fame, once a dream, had turned into rejection. During the 1980s, he tried television again, even taking a villain role on General Hospital to prove he could act differently. But fans hated seeing their former idol as a bad guy. The network cut his role short after angry letters poured in. Shaun felt misunderstood, trapped between who people thought he was and who he really wanted to be. These failures, though painful, were also freeing. They pushed him toward something new, writing and producing. He wanted to create his own stories, ones that showed pain, truth, and complexity. It was the start of a long and difficult rebirth. By the early 1990s, Shaun had turned away from fame completely. He focused on writing and producing for television. His first attempt, a horror movie called Strays, was not successful. Critics even laughed at it, but it gave him experience. Then, in 1995, he created American Gothic, a dark, haunting show about a small town ruled by a corrupt sheriff. It was nothing like the Hardy Boys. It was full of moral conflict, mystery, and psychological pain. This time, fame didn't control him. He controlled it. By 2018, Shaun Cassidy was no longer chasing fame. He was respected as a serious creator. His show New Amsterdam ran for 5 successful seasons, earning critical praise and global recognition. But even with success, he stayed true to his principles. When Netflix offered him $15 million to reboot the Hardy Boys, he said no. The reason? The scripts were too childish. He wanted to explore how trauma might have shaped the Hardy brothers as adults, how their experiences solving crimes could have left scars. The network didn't agree, but Shaun didn't back down. He said the original show worked because it had real teenage emotion, not fake perfection. That refusal showed how far he had come, from a young man trapped in an image to a creator in full control of his vision. Around this time, fans began rewatching the old episodes and noticing strange details, dark props, newspaper clippings, and hints that perhaps Shaun had been trying to express something deeper even back then. These fan theories only made his story more mysterious and fascinating today. Shaun Cassidy is worth an estimated $20 million, mostly from the shows he's written and produced. But money has never been the point. In interviews, he often says that fame felt empty, while honest storytelling brought him real peace. His journey, from child of chaos, to teen idol, to forgotten star, to respected writer, proves that success is not about staying in the spotlight, but about finding your voice. He turned his pain into art and his silence into strength. When he refused to sell out his creative vision, it showed that he had finally healed the wounds that fame once left behind. The real reason the Hardy Boys went dark wasn't just about TV. It was about Shaun Cassidy himself. He had always wanted to explore the darkness of human life, but Hollywood wasn't ready for it then. Decades later, the world finally caught up to him. His story is more than a tale of fame. It's a lesson in honesty. Even after finding peace in his creative career, Shaun Cassidy couldn't fully escape the shadows of his childhood. The memory of his father's tragic death, his family's broken relationships, and the crushing pressure of fame stayed with him for years. He often said in interviews that fame can freeze a person in time. Everyone keeps expecting you to stay young, happy, and perfect, even when life keeps changing. Shaun had to learn how to grow beyond that. Therapy, meditation, and distance from Hollywood helped him start healing. He once described the process as learning how to breathe again. For decades, he avoided watching the Hardy Boys because it reminded him of the person he used to be, the young man trying to smile through pain. But eventually, he began to accept that version of himself. He realized that without that experience, he might never have developed the strength or the perspective that later made him a great storyteller. It was through writing that he learned to process his emotions, transforming private grief into something that could touch others. By confronting his past rather than running from it, he began to reclaim the parts of his life that fame had stolen. Shaun's retreat from the spotlight wasn't just about his career. It was also about rediscovering what it meant to live a normal life. During the 1990s and 2000s, he focused more on his family than fame. He married actress Susan Dial and later producer Tracy Lynn Turner, with whom he has several children. Living away from the chaos of Los Angeles, Shaun spent time gardening, writing music privately, and mentoring young writers. He even began performing again, not in huge stadiums, but in small, intimate venues where he could share stories between songs. These performances became like therapy for both him and his audience. Fans who had grown up with him were often moved to tears hearing him talk about how fame had affected his family and mental health. Shaun would often say that he finally understood that success wasn't about charts, ratings, or awards. It was about connection. When someone tells me that something I wrote helped them, he once said, that means more than any hit record I ever had. Those years of quiet living helped him rediscover what truly mattered: peace, family, and honest creativity. One of the hardest moments in Shaun Cassidy's life came in 2017, when his older brother, David Cassidy, passed away. Although the two had struggled with a distant and complicated relationship for decades, Shaun was deeply affected by his death. David's battle with addiction and health problems had been public for years, and when he died, Shaun was left with a mix of grief and guilt. He wrote on social media that even though they had their differences, David's music had touched millions and would never be forgotten. Later, Shaun revealed that during David's final days, they reconnected through phone calls and honest conversations. David admitted to him that fame had nearly destroyed his life, and Shaun understood that pain all too well. He said, "We shared more than blood, we shared the same storm." Losing David reminded him how fragile fame could be and how important it was to live truthfully before it's too late. In his later concerts, Shaun often told stories about his brother, using humor and warmth to turn that pain into a lesson about forgiveness and love. It showed that, after all those years, he had finally found compassion for the family and the boy he once tried to escape from for decades. Younger audiences didn't know much about Shaun Cassidy, but thanks to social media and streaming platforms, his old shows and songs began to find new fans. Clips of the Hardy Boys resurfaced on YouTube, and suddenly, teenagers were discovering the 1970s idol who looked like a mix of innocence and mystery. Some fans even started Shaun Cassidy challenges, where they tried to recreate his hairstyle or fashion looks. What surprised everyone most was that Shaun himself joined the conversation. On TikTok and Instagram, he began posting funny, humble videos talking about his past. Instead of running from his teen idol image, he embraced it with humor. He joked about the silly photo shoots, the awkward dance moves, and the wild fan stories. But he also used those moments to talk about deeper subjects: mental health, the pressure of perfection, and how to stay authentic in a world that rewards fake smiles. By being honest and kind, he built a whole new following of people who admired not the idol, but the man who had survived the storm. His story became proof that reinvention and honesty never go out of style. It took decades, but Hollywood eventually caught up to Shaun Cassidy's vision. The kind of dark, emotional storytelling that once got the Hardy Boys cancelled became the very thing that modern TV celebrates. Shows like Stranger Things, Riverdale, and Wednesday blend mystery with emotional realism, the same approach Shaun had dreamed about in the late 1970s. When journalists asked him if he felt bitter that others were now getting credit for what he had wanted to do years earlier, he smiled and said, "Not at all. I just came too early." That answer showed how much he had matured. Instead of resentment, he felt pride that television had evolved. In a way, His early struggles helped open the door for those who came after him. Younger creators often cite his shows like American Gothic as inspirations for their own work.